I think it's happening again. I've mentioned this in a couple of episodes, briefly or in a roundabout way or in passing. I'm going to make this episode a little bit about this. As I said, I only found out almost 3 years ago now, I suppose, that INFJ was a thing. I never heard about it before that. I knew about personality types, blah, blah, blah. And I found out about that stuff. And in typical INFJ fashion, I took a deep dive. And so, like I say, I've mentioned it a few times before in episodes. But in typical INFJ fashion, I also mentioned it vaguely and sort of like a hunch type fashion. So typical, isn't it? Sort of saying, I feel this thing. I don't know what it is, but I'm trying to tell you about it. Yeah, eyes glaze over. So, it's happening again. It's happening again. Like a few years ago, I took the big deep dive. I went and watched a bunch of stuff. I watched a bit of Boom Shaka and I watched a whole bunch of Frank James, and I saw all sorts of ones. I've got everyone in my family and friends and people, just customers even. When I go to hire people, I was doing personality tests. You're not supposed to, but I'd say, hey, if you want it, you can do it. I can, anyway. So, and in typical INFJ fashion, felt that I knew everything about everyone and stuff like that. It sort of turned out that I wasn't so interested in certain types of personality types. If there are certain like, oh, okay, I don't know what that is. Don't even want to find out, because sort of, unless I can see some patterns and similarities with something that I know about, I don't want to know. I'd already worked up in my head or something, not necessarily in my head, but just like full hunch type of stuff, who I like to deal with. If I get a good vibe, that's fine. I think that's something to be said. Gut feelings and stuff like that. But not being able to articulate it. So even going down the rabbit hole of MBTI and all that sort of stuff, I worked out pretty quick that it was a flawed system. It's sort of outdated now. That the one that makes a whole lot more sense is the Big Five in psychology. I think that might have. I found that out from quite a few places. Frank James was one of the places that mentioned it, of course. And I heard the story yesterday. He was on Bo Miller's podcast way back, 2018. So yeah, that's 4 years ago. Where he was on a podcast with Bo Miller, and he was sort of saying how he got started in YouTube and how he'd found out that he was an INFJ, in recent times and stuff like that. So that's very similar sort of story, and he's sort of gone down the deep dive, and he talks about function stacks and stuff. I never quite went into it to that depth that I want to know that, but it was interesting. I just heard something in one of the things yesterday that it was. This might be a Bo Miller one as well. How it was based on Jungian, the Elizabeth and Isabel Myers and Briggs, whichever way around those names are the ones that invented it, and it was because of of the stuff that come from Jung's theories and findings of experiments or whatever that they built up and made accessible Jungian theory into the Myers-Briggs. But I think since then, the Big Five has been a more popular or more well-rounded or well thought of by clinical psychologists and stuff like that. I know Jordan Peterson talks about the Big Five and high in openness and all these things. So you Big Five. So and the old 16personalities.com, even though that's one most people go to because it's a 12-minute test and you can get yourself your letters. That one on the end is because of it's made out of 5. It's made out of 5 things. So it's it would correlate to something in. It's just a correlation. It's just making that sort of stuff accessible, giving you a box and giving you some things that you can say, that's me, and it seems to work quite well. But what I'm saying is, I became a bit overwhelmed. It's an INFJ thing that I just didn't look at it anymore. And when I did this channel and the whole idea for this channel and stuff like that, it was just a random idea that I thought about, and I didn't really plan on doing a deep dive into all of this stuff again. I find it a little bit overwhelming, and I'm finding that overwhelming again. It is happening again. And I have an interest in psychology and things like that for my own sort of reasons, or just INFJ reasons. Just because I like to make sense of the patterns of the world and how the hell people think, especially during Rona. It was quite interesting. I've said before, I read the book about the Lucifer effect on how it was talking about the Stanford prison experiment and Abu Ghraib and all these things, and how that is tying in with how all the cops are and authorities are taking a bit of an overreach. The Gulag Archipelago, man, that was a book that just explains a lot about Russia at the moment. So, well, I don't think anyone can make any comment on Russia if they haven't read that book. And it was on Audible, and it was one that was quite well done. It was had Jordan Peterson as a foreword with the grandson of the bloke that wrote it, Solzhenitsyn, whatever it is. Solzhenitsyn. I've got that wrong, sorry. But this fella's the grandson and a concert pianist and stuff like that, but also the reader of the book. And then they get on and do a sort of a bit of a podcasty type of thing at the end as well. And it is an abridged version of the book, but it's well abridged, like to make it accessible. Like the stuff that was cut out was, there was definitely stuff cut out. I think it was cut down to about a third of its size. Most people, if they've heard of the Gulag Archipelago, might admit to having a copy or starting read it, but not many people have read it. But this was super overwhelming, actually, just to take all that in. To be honest, I probably haven't talked about it much since I finished reading it a few months ago, and I've probably compartmentalised it a little bit, because it was just, whoa, I didn't know if I was going to make it to the end of it, and the feelings that it gives you, quite powerful, almost depressing, but more than depressing. I don't know, like overwhelming and depressing and something and something and something, and I don't know what those somethings are. The Gulag Archipelago. I don't know which version it was, but it was you know, like I've explained to you, that if you're interested. And so, you know, like I do like all of this stuff, but I feel something is a little off with the potential for the type of people that the MBTI and this YouTube psychology realm could potentially attract. There's double potential in there. Does that negative itself out? Like in maths? Do you call it maths or math? I got an INTJ mate that just, I think he's got OCD. Oh no, it's called math. It's not maths. Well, he's probably right, but plenty of maths teachers that call it maths. just pedantics. Getting caught up for things for no reason. Anyway, so I'm starting to feel that, you know, especially in a lot of a couple of episodes ago, that it's just just how this is not a you know, self-help channel. It's just me talking about myself, in case anyone wants to try and analyse an INFJ and see how that. I don't even know why I'm doing this. You know what I mean? So. So yeah, anyway, the announcement will be coming in a couple more days, but I just wanted to try and get out my feelings about this niche that I'm unable to put it in words. I feel funny about it. I felt funny about it last time, a couple of years ago. I probably spent 6 months on it, maybe 9 months. And I wouldn't mind, once again, getting to that stage where the YouTube algorithm is going to, you know, it's going to stop throwing this stuff at me. You know, like once you stop watching this stuff, especially if you haven't subscribed, it goes away. It can take a while. Every now and then, you know, in a moment of weakness, months later, YouTube will go, here's one, try that. Get back on the horse. Charlie horse. So yeah, look, it is it an addiction? Who knows? Anyway, I've got to go. It's lunchtime.